Welcome. This is the podcast called Solving Literal Equations. A literal equation, literal means letter, so these are going to be equations with lots of letters in them, like this monstrosity down here, 2/3 a equals 1/2 h b1 plus b2 minus b1. There's 4 different variables in that problem. The good news, though, about literal equations is that the steps that you use to solve them are the same steps we already learned for solving linear equations. So let's get started with this one. The best way to see the steps is just to go through it. Now, I didn't mention eliminating fractions as one of the 4 steps here. Eliminating fractions, though, is just a good way to start almost any equation. There are some, though, where you don't do that first, and we'll kind of point those out as we go through the semester. But here we do want to get rid of those fractions, so that's the first thing we're going to do. We notice down here that we have a 3-term expression. Now, terms, we said, were separated by plus signs, minus signs, and equal signs. The only plus sign here is in a bracket, so it's not counted as a plus sign because numbers inside a bracket are counted as a single number. So we have first 2 terms, 2/3 a and 1/2 h b1 plus b2, separated by this equal sign. We have the next 2 terms, 1/2 h b1 plus b2 and b1, separated by this minus sign, so that's a total of 3 terms. The common denominator is 6. You multiply every term, and there's 3 of them. You multiply every term by the common denominator, so that'll be 6 times 2/3 a is equal to 6 times 1/2 h b1 plus b2 minus 6 times b1. Now there's a place where students sometimes fall down. Sometimes when students are eliminating fractions, they multiply the common denominator by every term with a denominator, but if a term doesn't have a denominator, they forget to multiply that one by the common denominator. You gotta multiply also the b1 by the common denominator. Okay, in the first term, the 3 cancels the 3, leaving a 2, so this becomes 4a. In the next term, the 2 cancels the 2, leaving a 3. So this becomes 3h b1 plus b2. And there's nothing special in the third one. That's just 6b1. Okay. Once we get rid of the fractions, and we've gotten rid of the fractions here, we go into our 4 steps. The first step says get x. Now, x in this case is not the objective variable. All I mean when I say x is the objective variable, and I use x for simplicity. Our objective variable is b1, not x. So we want to say get b1 out of the parentheses, out of the grouping symbols. Well, b1 is in a grouping symbol right here, so we have to do that step. So I'll write 4a equals, and then to get b1 out, I'll distribute the 3h b1 plus 3h b2, and we didn't do anything to this term, so minus 6b1. And we've successfully gotten b1 out of the grouping symbol. The second step says get the b1 terms to one side and the non-b1 terms to the other side. We'll only have 2 b1 terms. This 6b1 here, the 3h b1, they're both on the right side, so that part is done. We do need to take our non-b1 term, the 3h b2, and get it to the other side. So I'll subtract that from both sides. And we have on this side 4a minus 3h b2 equals 3h b1 minus 6b1. Next step, it says form a single b1 term. Well, right now we have 2 b1 terms, and it says to do that by factoring out b1. So I'm going to come down here and factor out b1. I'll do it on the right side here. And I've factored it out correctly if, when I multiply back, I get what I started with. So if I multiplied b1 back, I'd have 3h b1, and then if I wanted minus 6b1, I'd need a minus 6 right here. When I multiply back, I get minus 6b1, so I've done that step correctly. I didn't do anything on this side, so that's still 3h b2. And finally, we're at the last step, reverse whatever was done to b1. So b1 was multiplied by this bracket, so to reverse it, I'll divide it by this bracket, And on this side, the bracket on top cancels, and I end up with just B1. Now I have to divide the other side by that exact same bracket. And you might be tempted here now to cancel the 3 h's. You can't do that. You can cancel when there's all multiplication, numerator and denominator, but you can see there's a minus in front of this 3h, a minus behind this one. That is not all multiplication. You may not cancel. That problem is finished. Now the second example problem that I wanted to look at is actually the same problem as the first example problem in structure. The only difference is, instead of solving for B1, this time we're going to solve for h. But we're going to go through the same steps, and we still have 3 terms, and the common denominator is still 6, so the first step is still 6 times 2/3 a is equal to 6 times 1/2 h times B1 plus B2 minus 6 times B1. Same step we used in the other one, same canceling. The 3 cancels the 3, leaving a 2. So this becomes 4a. The 2 cancels the 2, leaving a 3. So this becomes 3h. B1 plus B2 minus 6b1. And now the two problems get different. Step 1 says, after you get rid of your fractions, get your h, in this case, which is our objective variable, get h out of the grouping symbol. Folks, h isn't in the grouping symbol. Normally, if you were trying to get something out of the grouping symbol, like when we got out the B1, we distributed to get the B1 out. The h is not in that grouping symbol, so do not distribute. You do not do step 1. You don't have to. H is already out of the grouping symbol. Go straight to step 2. Get your h terms on one side. That's the only h term, and it is on the right side. And your non-h terms to the other. So I'm going to add 6b1, add 6b1. And I get 4a plus 6b1 is equal to 3h B1 plus B2. Step 3 says form a single h term. That is a single h term. There's no pluses here, there's no minuses here, well, except for the plus in the bracket, but in the bracket that's all one number. So there's no pluses or minus, so that's just one term. So we come to the last step, reverse what is done to h. H has 2 things done to it. It's multiplied by 3, and it's multiplied by that bracket. So if you want to undo that, if you want to reverse that, you'll divide by 3 and you'll divide by that bracket. And you have to do it to both sides. Divide by 3, divide by the bracket. And on this side, the 3 cancels the 3, and the B1 bracket cancels the bracket. That's because we have all multiplication on the top, 3 times h times bracket, and all multiplication on the bottom, 3 times bracket. That's why we can cancel. Look at the top on the left. That's a plus sign up there. Can't cancel. So we are finished. We get h equals 4a plus 6b1 over 3 B1 plus B2. Problem done. And that ends the podcast.